And here we go with some late Latin. Said, but illy he, Julius the Emperor, he was of an avid semper always, was to ulterior, to further things of an avid desire, to, looks like if you want to put that in English, is always desirous of, desires. Anyway, parvi, habitus dictus. So the words were given, and he was of this present participle nature of vetoing them, considering them small things, and having, or with his optimists, with his leading generals and people who gave him guidance, he increpited against them, so he basically insulted them and rebuked them, because of their inertia and a desiderium, their desires for otium, which is leisure. So he said they're all slackers, basically. Swaderant, they were persuading him with these. This is what the ob is about, because of they were persuading him to do all this, not being so desirous of going forwards, but actually to hold back. And the regna of the Persians, Persian kingdoms, which were already prope nearly the parts of Persia belonging to him nearly. So anyway, the flumine lava relicto, the river was left to him, with the river left to the left. Okay, there's two lefts there. With some enforcers ductoribus, so he had some guides, some ductors who enforced us usually means unlucky, you're having some sort of religious or omen type thing. So he had some unlucky people guiding him. Pray usually means going out in front, so it looks like he was, the via is the way, so he had some unlucky guides taking him out in the front. And what have we got here, this last bit to the full stop? Mediterraneous, this means going inwards to the land away from the sea. You probably get Mediterranean from that, but actually means going inwards. He proposed, so he decided to oripere, to take the inland things, inland VAs, with citato grado. So he's on the march, going rather fast in step. 4. Entamquam, which means just as, with the Farce Funesta, this was like with a funeral torch of Bellona. This would be some sort of war god, war goddess. And so just as if by the funeral torches of Bellona, what he's done, he's usurated, he's ordered that Cunctus Naves, all the ships to be exuri, to be burnt up, subjected to ignibuses, which are fires. And I don't know why there's a 4 there. Praetor, besides minors duodecim, besides 12 of the small ones. So Cunctus, all of them are burnt except for these 12 small ones. Quas, which pro futurus would be helpful in the future. Pangandus. Pango means to create or make something. So create or making pontibus as bridges. So this would be a gerundive. And he disposited them, he possessed them and grabbed them and poswitted them. He placed them on carpenters, which are wagons, to be vihide, to be dragged or carried or whatever. And pudabat, he was thinking this utila, useful to ordinasse. Okay. And then we have a nay, so lest, being relicta left behind, looks like hostibus classes. This would be useful, for it means in the future, this would be used by the enemy fleets. So he burnt them so the enemy fleet couldn't grab hold of them and use them. Or curte, or certainly, so that from the primordio, from the beginning of his expedition, factum est, it had been this way, that Ferre almost Vergintai Milia, 20,000 of his armed warriors were occuparentor, they were occupied in dragging these ships, is them the same navabuses, and in regending them and controlling them. Okay, so it looks like they were a bit of a burden that took 20,000 men just to move them and drag them around, so he decided to burn them except for 12 small ones. So 5, Dayin. Daindi can go before any words. Dain's a shortened version of it. Looks like it's being used with a consonant. Anyway, so then, cum when, quisque each one, sibi for himself, metuing, spheering, were musserating, where they were muttering, or complaining and whispering, and each one again monstrated, they demonstrated or pointed out the perspicua veritas, the obvious truth, quod being that, forcitem perhaps, if they get repulsed or sent back, by the aridate, by the aridness or the altitude, that's the heights of the montium, of the mountain. I think there's another spelling that says bitterness or something. What have we got here? It is altitude, 9 in the lobe as well. Anyway, the milles, the soldiers, would non poterat, not be able to redire, to return ad aquas, to the water, where all the ships were being burnt. And perfugas, these are fugitive or people fleeing, who were tortide, being tortured, they aperte, openly, faterentor, confessed, there's the NT showing it's plural, themselves having been deceived, for felicade. And with concurso maximo, with the greatest running, you say they were ordered to extinguish flammasum, the flames, at quonium. And since Orctus ignis, the fire had increased immenita monstrously, and plerusque, and most of them consumpsit, had been consumed in the fires. Tantamodo, doesn't need a space, merely or only duodecim naves, 12 ships, potawert, were able, intact to be servare, to be preserved or saved, which ut possint custode discreta. So as they had been discreta, set aside to be custode, to be guarded or kept from the flames. 6. Hoc casu classe. So by this casu, by this case or disaster, the classe, the fleet, was abolita. It was destroyed when non operated, when it didn't have to be, when it ought not to have been. Anyway, Julianus, the emperor, Fretus, relying on his ablative here, relying on his consociato army, his army who were all very friendly. They're all got their crap together. Anyway, and cum nulli, none of his armatorum, none of these armoured people were being distringated or distracted or pulled apart through diversions or other things. Numero potio, looks like his number was even stronger or even preferable now. He tended batted or aimed to the interior, which he was doing up here somewhere. It's called the Mediterranean, wherever we saw it, anyway. And ad fartum, it's a bit like satis, but a bit stronger. So fully, the alimenta, all the things they needed for nourishment, were opulentus sagerantibus locus. So these opulent places were sageroing him or stocking them up or supplying him for all the alimenta he needed. 7. The hostes, not being very hospitable, the enemy, quo cogito, with this known, so that us, they could crucify us, they could torture us with inedia, with fasting and having no food, nothing to eat. The herbus, that's the grasses, with the adultus segetibus are the grains growing, and they're now adult or ripe, they incendianted. So up here he's burning his own fleet, now the enemy are burning all the grasses and grains. And by this conflagration, by this fire, vetiti, we were forbidden, vetoed, which we saw up here again, veto in the participle, here it is in the plural perfect or something. And it takes the infinitive, it's like dico is to say and vetoes to prohibit, or whatever. Anyway, it takes the infinitive. And so we were forbidden or cut off from proceeding, and so in a stativus castrus, in a permanent camp, Dum, while the flamers, senesca, entered, while the flames grew old, tenebam, or we were held in a permanent camp. Okay, insultantes qui. Insulting and dancing about. Anyway, the Persians, Perse, nobis us, from far away, were insulting. They were attacking us from far away. Now, and they industry on purpose, and they defundamented, say, they spread themselves out, and aliquotians, sometimes they conferdius, they came more packed together, resistantes, resisting us. So, present participle there and here. So that from Procol, from far away, Viderento, it seemed to the people conspicuanting, to the people watching it, that already now the auxiliary regis, the auxiliaries of the king, were adveniseing. And again, video takes the infinitive. And idioque, and for this reason, aestimaris, we were guessing or estimating, eos, they were erupting. We thought they were sallying out because they wanted to make it look like the auxiliaries of the kings were coming. And this is why the excursions, their sallies, were so audacious, so bold, and insolite and unaccustomed teptamenta. That's a neuter plural. They're bold attempts. They were doing this to make it look like the auxiliaries of the king were turning up. Okay, so for the daily dictionary, insulto, to attack. We've got triumph, leap, insult. I think if we check this one, don't worry about it, go back to this. I could bring it up, but usually means jumping about or dancing or something. Anyway, nevertheless, Tamen, obhake, because of these things, the imperator and the miles, the emperor and the soldiers were meribating. They were a bit gloomy, quite because nec contabulande pontus. They didn't have the faculty, they didn't have the opportunity or means of contabulanting, which means putting planks together to make a bridge, because temere, rashly, they had burned all their ships. That's why the ships were amissus, lost. And neither poderat were they able to occur the hostis, to stop the enemy adventiculi, the motions or the advancing of these advancing enemies. They weren't able to stop the advancing enemies, whom their adesse, their approach, was indicated by the coruscus nitor, the glistening sheen of their arms, pro singulus membris, on each member, which was arte tightly done and in flexus, so it was bound and curved around their bodies. And a cedar bat. And something was added to these, and to add to this, another thing, not an exiguo malum, not a small evil or trouble, was called that, neither the adminicula, this would be the help I'm thinking they're waiting for, the adminicula, which praestola bama, which we were waiting for, with our sake and nostris ducibus, and with our leaders, neither did they ad pariabat, neither did they appear, ob causes, because of the reasons which are predicted, which we have said before, because of the impediments that we've said before. Okay, so he's discussed all that. And back to insulto. Here's what it usually means: dancing, trampling, jumping about. But then, here's this one: attack, assault, which is what it used for here. And that's it for the day.